something left on the stove. We're gonna continue with that investigation, but those are the only two options at this point. It is accidental. I do wanna say that, on a Friday night into a Saturday morning in August on Block Island with a hotel full of people, not one injury, not one death. That means the system works, the code works. That building, through our investigation, the sprinkler system and fire alarm system was compliant, and it worked. It got everybody out. Although the fire was enormous, the sprinkler system wasn't. It was never going to put the fire out because it was above it. So that I want to make that clear that it was an accidental fire, and the code works. We've been on that island since 2019, 20. They had their own fire marshal over there for an extended period of time. He no longer was there. I don't know why. We didn't ask for Block Island. We kind of inherited it. And it takes a lot of resources from us to go over there all the time, but our inspection division has done a tremendous job in that island. I think we've inspected over 3 dozen places after COVID. We had an inspector over there, but COVID kind of stopped everything like it did everywhere else. But once we got back on the island the last year and a half, we've done a complete inspection. Basically, we're almost completely inspected that island. This particular place we missed we had so much going on. We had 2 teams over there. One team thought the other team got it, and it didn't, but it was compliant. So I just want to make that perfectly clear that our inspection division does a tremendous job on that island for 13 miles off the coast, and it's not an easy task to get over there and do the inspections they do. So I think there's a list that we sent out of what we've done and what's compliant and what's going before the Board of Appeal and Review, which is they're right under the law. If we do an inspection, they have 30 days to appeal it. They appeal it, and then they go before the board, and if they're looking for variances and whatnot. So there's also that the Attorney General's office is investigating this office. That's not true. We have a very, very good working relationship with the Attorney General's office. We work with them hand in hand on our investigations all the time. They called us last week at one point. They saw the news media. They saw some stuff in the news media. They asked to see the fire report. It was based on what we found during our investigation, that there were non-compliant suppression systems in a couple of restaurants over there. Once we found that out, we immediately sent people over that day with abatements. So we abated 2, the Mohegan Cafe and Club Soda. Consequently, we found another one yesterday. We were over there yesterday afternoon, and we abated another one. Yes, there's a company, Mr. Friend. I don't know what his company's name is.
It's Emergency Services of New England.
Emergency Services of New England. We subsequently revoked his license in Rhode Island to do fire suppression systems based on what we thought was definitely negligent. Does it rise to criminal negligence? That's not us. That's up to the Attorney General to look at. So that's where we're working with the Attorney General. They're not investigating anybody in this office for anything. So, like I said, we provide a lot of resources to Block Island, which is a lot of man hours from this office. So we want to make sure that life safety is the #1 thing over on Block Island. It's 13 miles off the coast, and as you can see, they did a tremendous job over there with that fire. They contained it to 1 building with no injuries and no deaths. That is a tremendous asset that they did over there. Chief Hobie and his team did a great job until the cavalry came. Once the mainland firefighters got over there, they did a great job. So the system worked. The mutual aid system worked. That could have been a tragic fire over there. And because the system worked, the place was compliant, and Chief Hobie and his team over there did a tremendous job for an hour and a half. I think we're down 1 single building. So, there's a lot of misinformation that we just wanted to make sure the accurate story was getting out, because it's been 2 weeks, I guess. We've been reading a lot of stuff and hearing a lot of stuff that wasn't accurate. So, any questions that you guys might have?
Yeah, if you're saying that, the system worked, the building was compliant, but there was no inspection and there was in the kitchen a fire suppression system that was not working, how do those two things go hand in hand? How could it be compliant if there was a broken fire suppression system?
Well, we found out the suppression system during our investigation. It was tagged wrong. The suppression system had an up-to-date tag on it. So we would have went in, if we would have done the inspection, we would have saw the tag and said it's okay. We don't get into the intricacies of how it goes together. That's not our expertise. That's a third-party fire suppression company. But once we realized that it wasn't compliant and compatible, we immediately took action, and we against Mr. Friend and his company, because he obviously put a tag up, labeled it, knowingly that it wasn't a compliant suppression system. So as far as the inspection goes, like I said, we missed that one. We were going back in September, so obviously we would have ventured into that one. There's a lot of facilities, a lot of places on Block Island to inspect. We put a plan together at the highest risks, so it's like a community risk reduction type of a deal, where we went in and we put a plan together saying we did the schools first. The school needed to get done. We did that. We did the places of assembly. We took their liquor licenses. We went to every place that had a liquor license. We did that. Then we did hotels, which only need to be done periodically. There's no loophole. Hotels are periodic. Liquor licenses, usually by ordinance, they have to be done when they get their new liquor license issued. Block Island they don't have that over there. And the other issue with Block Island is there was an address issue at the beginning. They don't have addresses over on Block Island. They kind of make up their own, I guess. They don't comply with the 911 system that you're supposed to have addresses in 231. We looked it up was it 213 or 231?
So 213 was the initial address we got for the fire. So our initial inspection report that came up was for 213. So there was some confusion in the addresses. So 213 is actually a couple of buildings down from the Harborside. The Harborside is actually addressed 41. So there's no real system of numbering over there, like over here, right? So it's not compliant with the 911 numbering system. So.
And if you look it up, if you Google 41 Water Street, you'll find an empty lot. If you Google 213 Water Street, you'll find out it says the Harborside Inn, which it isn't. So that's the confusion on that island all the way around. I think they get to make up whatever their favorite number is. I'm not really sure how that works, but so once we realized that mistake was made, we sent out a statement right away to be fully transparent that we pulled the wrong inspection report based on the address we were given. I spoke of when they called me, I spoke of 213 Water Street with the report that I was given, and we clarified that as soon as we realized that we hadn't been in that building. But the good thing is, it was a compliant fire alarm system and a compliant sprinkler system in that building. Mr. Friend and his company, we immediately moved to revocation of his license in the state of Rhode Island, based on what we found during the investigation.
So are you saying that even if you guys had gone in and inspected the Harborside Inn, because of that tag on the fire suppression system, you wouldn't have caught it and you wouldn't have been able to prevent this?
That's correct. That's correct.
When it comes to the investigation, I know in the report it said you mentioned the two different potential causes, possibly something being left on the stove, maybe somebody was in there cooking after hours. How are you guys trying to figure out what that happened? Is there a chance that somebody who had been in that area isn't telling the truth in terms of this investigation?
I'm going to refer to Chief Deputy Gibbon.
So yes, there's always the possibility that we're not getting all the correct information, but during the course of the investigation, this is where we've come down to, all right? So during the investigation, when we first went into the kitchen, we did see that there were control knobs for one of the cooktops that were in the on position. Okay, so obviously we're gonna be looking at that immediately when the kitchen staff is telling us that everything was shut off. Throughout the investigation, we did find out that there was an individual, a retired firefighter, that was awoken by the fire alarm system going off. And being a retired firefighter, he's gonna go and look and see what he can find, try and make sure people are out, and if there's anything that he can do to slow the progression of the fire, or even get it knocked out, that's what they're gonna do. So this gentleman had gone into the kitchen, did see fire on this cooktop, and tried to manipulate the valves, right, to see if he could shut it down, and expelled a portable fire extinguisher on that. Obviously, he couldn't get ahead of it, so he had left the building. So knowing that those knobs have been manipulated, we can't say for sure what position they were in originally when this gentleman went in there, nor could he. It was dark, the place was full of smoke, so he couldn't see what was on and what was off. So we can't rule out the possibility that that cooktop was on or left on. The other possibility we're referred to is, our investigator refers to as embers. All right, so if anybody's cooked on a gas grill in their backyard, you know if you put a burger on there or a steak, it flares up, right, from the grease and the fat. During the course of our investigation, we determined that there were some of the grease traps, or the baffles, up in the hood. All right, so if any of you have ever been in a commercial kitchen, when you look up in the hood, there's these plates up there that kind of have gaps in them and so forth, so it catches the grease as those grease vapors come up. We did find that at least 2 of those were missing. We don't know where those gaps were on the cooking line when cooking was active in there, so it is, the other possibility is that during their normal cooking process, they had a flare up that got grease going up into, up inside the hood and up actually into the wall cavity. So within that hood, we did find that there were gaps and flanges where the fan's attached. There's actually 2 hoods that are put together, and where those are connected, again, there was space in there which would allow hot grease-laden vapors to get up into confined spaces. All right, and so with a flare-up, if you get that grease going and you're up into those confined spaces, that fire is already going. So those are the 2 possibilities that we cannot rule out.
The report said that there were footage from inside the building. There was some saltwater damage, but that you guys were trying to extract that footage. How's the process of that going? Have you been able to get anything from that?
So we, if you don't mind,
No, go ahead.
I'll answer that one too. So we did just yesterday hear back from the technology company that we sent that out to. So we used a company that is used by ATF for retrieving digital data and things like that. So we did get word yesterday that it does appear they might be able to get some information off of that hard drive. So we're in the process of working through that. So if in fact they can, we're hoping that that's going to give us a little more insight, a little more information. We do know from the business owner that one of the cameras looks into the kitchen from the waiter station, and that angle would show at least a portion of the cooking line, so it should help us if we can get that data retrieved.
When it comes to the fire suppression system that was broken, you mentioned that the license has been revoked, but is there any level of liability that he can be held to, anything more than just having the license revoked? Obviously the fire was accidental, but if the suppression system had worked, could that have stopped it?
I guess you could maybe, but I think this fire went in, Jim, if it was on the stovetop, there's a possibility it definitely would have went off, but if it got into the walls, into the void spaces, probably not. But is there liability? I would venture to say that's going to be between his company and the insurance companies, and if it rises to the criminal negligence, that if that's what the AG comes up with, that's their job too. So as far as that goes, that'll be between they'll fight that out between the 2 of them.
Okay, and so the AG's involvement is kind of in that area of determining if there's any criminal responsibility. You guys don't handle that?
No, we handle if it's arson, we do that stuff on our side of the thing, but when it comes to criminal stuff, the AG will handle that. So yeah, that's their involvement in this case, and they reached out to us, asked for the copy of the report, we sent it to them because they've been reading the media, so they'll determine where it rises to.
When we had spoken a couple days after the fire, you had mentioned that just because of the nature of such an old building with the fire kind of getting above the working sprinkler system, that made it, even harder, helped contribute to the spread. Now, as you guys are doing inspections on Block Island, are you prioritizing some of these older, more historic buildings that maybe are more susceptible?
Yeah, no, we're in every building out there, so we work very closely with the fire chief out there, so he gives us, he'll kind of guide us what he thinks are the risks, the highest risk, and that's what we're trying to get to, right? We want to get to the highest risk first, that we know, and listen, every building out there, every building on Main Street's old. I mean, they're all old. The National's old. The National's fully sprinkled. So but it's also incumbent, whether we're out there or not, it's also incumbent on the business owner or the property owner to make sure that their property's maintained. That's another thing that's not really being pushed. They still have a responsibility, whether we investigate. If we went out there in June and did our inspection, we would have written them up, given them a letter. They had 30 days to appeal. It's a process, but it's still incumbent on them to make sure and hire a legit company. I don't know why this guy was putting tags on stuff that wasn't compliant. That's not for me to decide, except we pulled his license, but it's incumbent on the business owner to make sure that his property is or the property owner. Either one. We go to the property owner. We don't go to the business owner. So either one should go in and look, and if they have an abundance of grease, every 180 days they're supposed to have it cleaned. Obviously, this place hadn't been cleaned as we did our during investigation since May 22nd, 22. I mean, so there's a sense of responsibility that falls definitely with the building owner too.
How often are inspections of these types of buildings supposed to take place? Is there a law regulating that?
Liquor licenses.
Jump in a little bit on that if you want. So, as far as the regularity of inspections in state statutes, schools are really the only ones that are there, and they have to be done annually. As far as places of assembly, they're in there. And also, when it regards to liquor licenses, again, that typically comes back to local ordinances. So if upon a liquor license renewal, that town needs a sign off from the fire marshal's office, in this case it would be us in Block Island, but they don't have that in their ordinances. But in other communities that have a local fire marshal, that fire marshal would have to do that inspection sometime during that year prior to the liquor license renewal.
Wouldn't the hotel or the restaurant, though, have a liquor license?
So the restaurant does have a liquor license, but again, the town doesn't require that sign off from a fire marshal as to regards to an inspection for that to get their liquor license issued. So the town of New Shore doesn't have that in their ordinances at this time. To that end, that was and still remains one of the priorities of the inspections division of this office is to get to all of those establishments.
Do you think it would be beneficial for the town to implement a rule like that, as other towns have?
Absolutely. I think it helps tremendously that whenever the liquor license in the municipalities right now, sometime in August, where I came from before, you get a list. The fire department would get a list of all liquor licenses, and before they got renewed, we'd have to go out and check the box that they were compliant. Right? That certainly helps. We went over and got the liquor licenses ourselves because we went to the places of assembly. We went to the schools. We wanted to make sure we did the highest risks first. Then we went to the places where they board the seasonal workers, the restaurants, the hotels. So we've done over over 30 some odd inspections, I think, in a year and a half over there. And we're going to continue. We got people out there today. We're going to be out there next week. It's a constant. It's just a constant. Now's probably a better time for us to get out there because the season's it's a little slower, and we can they probably get a little bit more cooperation, But yeah, no, we're out there. We're doing, it takes a lot of resources for this office to get out there too, to do that. It takes away from everything we need to do on this side of the pond, So, but yeah, no, I mean, it would definitely be beneficial if they pass that ordinance over there.
One of the things you started the press conference clarifying is that the fire was accidental, but it does sound like there were several things that either contributed to the severity of the fire or helped to, make it spread to a point where it wasn't able to be put out that quickly. Do you think that, if some of the things, if there had been less grease in the restaurant, if the suppression system had worked, that this could have been contained or less of an issue?
I look at the age of the building and how it's built, the construction of the building. It's a balloon framed, older, built in the 1800s. I think once that fire got into it could have been contained a little bit if it was on the stove, yes, but I think once it got into the void spaces in the wall, it just traveled. There was nothing stopping it. There was no fire stop, so it went right up and right across the ridge line above the sprinkler system. I mean, once it got down, the sprinkler system definitely kicked in, but at that point, it wasn't going to do much at that point neither. The good thing is the fire alarm worked and all. I think they had a wedding party of 35 or something over there, and everybody got out without a scratch. I mean, that's a very important note to this whole thing.
What happens from here? I know this is not the only thing you're investigating over here.
Yeah,
right?
no, Sheena, it's taken up a considerable amount of time for the last 2 weeks. We just wanted to do this to kind of get all the information out from us, because if you don't see us, people tend to figure it out themselves, and that's not generally a good way of doing business. So, but yeah, no, we got a lot of stuff. We're busy. This office is tremendously busy. All four parts of it: Fire Academy, the bomb squad, the investigations, and the inspection division. So, this has taken up a considerable amount of time over the last 2 or 3 weeks. So, we'd like to just move on to other things if we can at some point.
Does the end look like it's coming?
Yeah, I think so. I think if we get this, we're going to decide whether we're going to get this video. We're going to decide. We just got the information yesterday, so we're going to look it over. If we can get this video and it can put to bed, if we can look down the line and realize that maybe the knobs were manipulated, but it didn't start there. We know it's accidental. We know it's one of two causes. That's one thing we do know. Although it's a tragedy, it's an old building. It's a sight when you get off that ferry. Believe me, I spend a lot of time on Block Island. It's what you see. It's what you see the most. But as I said, and I'll keep repeating it, the Block Island Fire Department did a tremendous job containing that. When the cavalry came from the mainland, they did an unbelievable job, and nobody got hurt, nobody died. I think those are the very important factors of the whole thing.
Before we wrap up, do you mind saying your name? I'm sorry, I don't know your name. Do you mind saying it for the record?
Sure. James Given,
And then spelling it out as well.
James and Given,
And what is your title?
Acting Chief Deputy.
Thank you. Is there anything else either of you would like to add on this situation?
No, I appreciate everybody coming in, and we really appreciate you guys coming in so we can get this information out there that needs to be out there.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Question. I was going to ask.
You tell I've been to Block Islands a lot in the last couple weeks.
You guys
I
have
have
to get
one.
Block Island at this point.
But yeah, I mean,
You're very welcome.
you guys, it's hard for you to get over. We